don't let go of your passion. Don't let anybody put you down. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. If you feel it in your heart, follow your dream, and it will come true. You just have to be persistent, and it will happen.
Welcome to the In Factor, conversations about how great entrepreneurs started, stumbled, and succeeded. I'm Rebecca White, and our next guest is William Braemer, the director of Art Fusion Galleries, a pair of contemporary fine art stores based in Miami and St. Petersburg, Florida. He is also the artist of William Braemer Fine Art. His art, which can be defined as abstract expressionism, has been exhibited in major cities throughout the Americas, Europe, the United Kingdom, and Asia. Founded in 1999, Art Fusion Galleries has represented thousands of emerging artists from around the world. Today, I had the opportunity to talk with William about his life as an artist and an entrepreneur. I hope you enjoy this episode. William, thank you for joining us today on In Factor.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Well, I'm really excited to have you here. I love artists. My mom, whose name, she recently passed away, but her name was Betty White. And
really?
Yeah, great name. But she was an artist and also a businesswoman. She turned her art into business, and it's a great story, but I have a special place in my heart for artists. And you know, a lot of what I do with students, I do because I believe that entrepreneurship is valuable for students of all majors, and especially from the arts. But so you're the director of Art Fusion Galleries, and it's a pair of beautiful stores and galleries in Florida, in Miami and St. Pete. So can you tell us a little bit about it, the mission, how it got started?
Art Fusion Galleries started in 1999, 2000. So one of the old dogs on the block, and I started in the Miami Design District when it wasn't Rodeo Drive on steroids. Now it was then the Wild West. And, you know, I decided to open up a gallery. The mission for Art Fusion Galleries is simply to serve as a springboard for emerging to mid-career artists, to springboard them into a career in the arts. And it started because when I decided to turn to my passion in painting, I realized that I had a lot of setbacks, and it's difficult to be an artist and exhibit in galleries. It's difficult to have artists accepted into galleries, especially when you're an emerging artist or people don't know you. It's a difficult situation. And I studied business. I had hotels before and I had restaurants. My father encouraged me. He actually forced me into studying business. He said, you can do whatever you want, but you cannot be a starving artist. He knew that I was talented, or he knew that I had some creative juices, but he said, I don't care what you study, but you have to study business. So I did. I studied the fashion business. I studied at FIT in New York, and I did fashion buying and merchandising first. And then I hated the garment business. It wasn't good with it. There's too much drama there. And so then I studied the culinary arts. I went to the New York Restaurant and Culinary Institute, which was under the umbrella of NYU, and I loved it in the sense that the plate was like the canvas and the food was like the paint, and I was able to create art on a platter. The business aspect was great because the food was almost like a nurturing thing from your mother or your parents, you know, nurturing you with food. And it had a whole great concept behind it, and I was good with it. And then I went and I did my apprenticeship in Europe after I graduated, and I loved it. I worked in a lot of hotels. I lived in Europe for 4 years, but there in Florence, when I was in Florence, I really got so enamored by the museums and the arts that I said, I have to do this. This is my life. You know, when I walk into a museum and I see the arts, I feel it. You know, I feel it. So for many years, I worked in the culinary arts and hotel business to satisfy my father and to, you know, do business. I was very good in business. I had a very successful business, catering businesses, bar businesses, restaurant businesses. And then I went into the hotels in Miami Beach and had one. I sold it. I bought another one, and then I sold that. And although I was successful in the business, I was very unhappy because I wasn't feeling that creative part of me. And I knew that I needed to do that in order to be happy. So when I sold my second hotel, on South Beach, I told my dad, I'm going to pursue, what I've always wanted to do now. And he said to me, you could do whatever the hell you want, because now you can afford it. And now you have a business background. So, I fought it was a constant struggle and fight throughout my younger days in business. And now, after 20 years of being in the art business, I realized that had it not been for him guiding me into that, I would have not been a successful artist or a successful business owner. I needed to have this. Art gallery business is a difficult business now more than ever, but it's a struggle. It's a luxury item that it takes passion. One of the things that this business takes a lot of passion for the arts. And so I have the same amount of passion for business as I do for art. And I think that's a great combination. And therefore, it's easy for me to represent artists, to sell art, to sell my art. I also come from a point of view when I meet an artist or when I'm representing an artist, I always ask myself, how would you like to be represented? What are the things that you require, me as an artist require from a manager or representative? And so that helps me to be a real good liaison between the artist and the business. Most artists, in my experience, the majority of artists, I've represented hundreds of artists in my career. And for the most part, I want to say most artists are not business savvy.
Yeah,
They're just not business savvy. And I've read a lot about it. And in a nutshell, it's really kind of a biological thing. It's the way your right and left brain work. And most artists and creative people, one of their sides of their brains is overdeveloped, and the logical side is underdeveloped. It doesn't mean that you're not smart. It just means that it's not so easy to comprehend psychologically what it is when you're thinking. And if you're an artist, the logic of business doesn't really fall too much into place. And when you're a business person, it kind of, the creative sides kind of lacks back. And that's not exactly all the time, but for the most part, I find that artists are not really business savvy people.
Yeah. My mom was an artist, and she was, like you, interested in a wide variety of different arts and art forms, but she ended up as a florist and had a business in the small town I grew up in. But one of her big challenges was always the business side that you pointed out. And what she ended up dealing with that by hiring someone to really help her. But in your case, you provide a lot of those services to the artist. Can you tell us, how does an artist find you, or do you find them, and how many artists do you represent with the galleries?
Okay, first of all, it's funny that you mentioned that your mom was a florist, because my dad had the flower shop at the Waldorf Astoria for 40 years in New York City.
Oh.
And he was very creative, but a very good businessman. He had a very successful business for many years. So he was very creative, but he knew that the business was very important. I help the artists in so many different ways, because not only do I represent and sell their works, but I also suggest, I give them suggestions on how to finish their works, or what are the works that they have, but the ones that I represent, what works will sell better, what formats will sell better, what subjects may sell better from a particular artist. How do artists find me? I don't solicit artists. I get between 100 and 150 submissions through our website a month from artists from all over the world. And I take pride in the fact that I look at every single submission. And I do that mainly because I remember sending submissions of my own in my early career, and a lot of the art galleries did not reply to me. So obviously I cannot take every single artist that submits the works, but I do suggest other galleries if it's not art that I can represent, because I have a certain criteria for the art that I represent. And if it's not art that I can represent, or it's not in our market, or not the type of works that I think I could sell, I try to recommend other galleries or other venues that they might pursue.
Mm-hmm. You're in your gallery right now. I can see it behind you. Our listeners can't. But what is the type of art? I know, and tell us about your art a little bit, and what type of art do you typically represent in your galleries?
I do have a wide selection of artwork, but all within the parameters of contemporary art. So we sell a lot of abstract works. We do sell figurative works. We don't sell traditional type works. It's not in my market to sell maybe, a field with thoroughbred horses and, the equestrian, type of London English type of paintings. It's not in my market. Or, landscapes that are very realistic, or portraits that are very realistic. We have portraits, but pop art portraits and different styles like that. Mostly contemporary works, only emerging to mid-career artists. I do not sell any prints. I do not sell any giclées being copies of original pieces. I only sell original works. The value, or the price points that I work with is anywhere between $500 to $25,000 or $30,000, not way over. And the pricing, and I help the artist with the pricing. My work is primarily, I have a very eclectic collections of works, because I don't believe, and that was another reason why I had a hard time in the beginning, because I have, like today I want to make a sculpture, and tomorrow I want to do an abstract painting, and the next day I want to do some pop art. I am very prolific in the way that I work, and I don't like to have my wings clipped. I don't believe artists should have their wings clipped. A lot of galleries have the idea or the way of being that you have to have a line, you have to follow that line. And that may be true in some senses when your career is a little bit more advanced and you find your niche in the market. But when you're an emerging artist, you really have to experiment. And I find that for sales, if you have an artist that has 20 by 20 wall to show their works, and they have 3 specific types of works, they're going to have a lot more possibilities of selling, because they're going to be projecting to different types of clients. 45% of my business, it comes from interior designers. So a lot of the works should be neutral, kind of abstract, whereas they're not political or religious. I don't have any political or religious works in the gallery. So I'm kind of like Switzerland, very neutral in everything that we sell. I have in my work, a lot of artists tell me that I sell out. Doesn't matter to me. I pay the rent. I do very well. And a lot of artists say to me, you're selling out because an interior designer may come and bring me a floor plan with colors and different furnishings and tell me, create something for this environment. And I do. I'll create something that matches the carpet, that has the colors of the sofa, and that, kind of brings things and harmonizes together. It's painting. It's my work. I love to do it, and I make good money out of it. A lot of the artists that I have will do the same thing. And I serve as a liaison between the clients or the designers and my artists.
Now, your artists, do you have artists from around the world, or are they mostly?
I do. Like behind me, you'll see the painting that's behind me is a polyptych, being many panels. I think there are 20 panels, form one piece. And this artist is from Sardinia, like I said, from Italy. His name is Stefano Sana, and I was the first gallery that represents him here in the U.S. And now I have him here in Wynwood. I have him in St. Petersburg Gallery. And I've also organized and have established exhibitions for him all around the world, in the Metropolitan Museum in Tokyo, in the Grand Palais Museum in Paris, the Oxo Tower in London. I have because I've had so much time in this industry, I've met a lot of great people, have a lot of great connections, not only with clients, but with galleries and museums. And so, again, I serve as a springboard for emerging to mid-career artists to be able to exhibit in places like that. When I take an artist and I represent them, I not only put their works on the wall and just wait until somebody comes in to see it, I promote them on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and through our own videos. And then I also open doors for them in Europe, in London, in Paris, in Rome, in different places. I had a world tour organized not too long ago, and what I did was I organized with my collaborator Vito Abba, which lives in Florence and has a gallery in Florence, and he takes care of the European and Asian market over there. We work together. We've been working together for like 6 years. He's really great. And we organized this world tour. It's called the World Vision Tour. And what it was basically was a group of artists from here, from the United States. And we had 7 countries that we exhibited in museums and galleries. And then to finish here during Art Basel here in Miami. Unfortunately, with this COVID, the 2 last places, which was the Museum Boliviano in Colombia and the Oxo Tower in London, have not been. We had to stop the world tour. So the tour is on limbo. However, It will continue somehow. We'll be able to fulfill it. And artists get very excited about that, because when you have one of the business parts of being an artist that's important for the value of your work is not only the work, it's also your background, your provenance of the art, and your curriculum vitae. And it's very impressive for a client to see, you've exhibited at the Grand Palais Museum or in Paris, and
Right.
you've shown at the Metropolitan Museum in Tokyo. That clearly it gives credibility to your work, and it also impresses the client. And also it's an investment in your career. All of these, the travel and shipping to all of these countries are very expensive. And so all of this adds value to the artwork.
Yeah, that must be really rewarding to work with those entrepreneurs and artists. We work with a lot of students who have an interest in art or an artistic ability. And would you say, you said that one of the things that's really helped you was that your father required you almost to get a business background. Do you think it's worthwhile for almost any artist to have some sort of training in business and marketing and finance?
I think it's imperative. I think that for some artists, not all, because some artists everyone is individual, as the art is individual. And if an artist has the ability to study art, to study business, or to have some kind of business background, it will only help them, even if they don't use it. But if they have a representative that is trying to guide them, they will have a little bit better understanding of what the business aspect of it, because art is a business. It is a business. And if you don't treat it as a business, you'll be a starving artist. Mm-hmm. And there are many starving artists, and the reason that there are many starving artists is because they don't have a business background, or because they're not taken up by a business or guided by someone with business
with that kind of background. Mm-hmm.
It's very, very important. However, saying that, I've met hundreds of artists, and there are some artists that just don't get it as far as the business. Their brain doesn't have the capacity to understand it. They need somebody to take that part away from them. And they have to find somebody that they can trust and that they can allow to fulfill that, so that they can spend all of their time creating. Right. So everyone is individual. Not everyone is the same. Not everyone. I have artists that are like myself, probably like your mom. I mean, I have artists that I represent. One that comes to mind is actually exhibiting in St. Petersburg, Lenore Robbins. I've been representing her for 15 years maybe. And she does very, very well. She's brilliant. She's a great marketer. She really is very diligent on all of the paperwork that needs to be done. Her work is meticulous, category, photographs, all of the things that a gallerist would want and need, and makes the gallerist's life easier. She does it. And when you have a business background, those things are very easy. When you don't, I mean, I get artists that bring me artworks. I have to write on papers that the art has to be dry, that it has to be signed, that it has to have, there are certain things that are maybe logical for me, but for an artist is, I want to get it out. And they're walking out the door and they're finishing little details.
Right.
So, and that's part of being an artist. You're creative. You think outside the box. I understand that. So it is rewarding. You said it must be it's extremely rewarding. And it's rewarding to know that I can show, or by power of example, I can let artists know that you can live from your art. You can certainly survive from your art. You can flourish from your art. It is a business. You can make a lot of money. I live very well. I travel the world. I live very well, and I live from my art and from my business. And I think through the power of example, a lot of artists come to me and they say, how have you done this? And it's not easy. Like anything that's worthwhile is not easy, but it can be done. You don't have to be a starving artist.
Right. And I love that message, because I think a lot of people can't quite fit those two together. And so it's really encouraging to hear you talking about it. It seems to me as an artist, just like anybody who's doing anything innovative, you have to be able to handle rejection, and you have to be resilient. And that's something that we talk to students about a lot. Can you comment on
Oh,
resiliency and challenges, and do you
yes,
have any suggestions for how
yes.
young entrepreneurs and artists deal with that?
In the arts, being an artist, I'm going to tell you my personal experience in the beginning when the first time that I was going to show my work, I actually went to therapy for 6 months because I didn't want to. The art is a part of me. It's an extension of me. It's something that very personal that I'm going to show, one part of me that I'm going to show to the public, open for criticizing, for ridicule, for, all different types of,
Right.
opinions. And I didn't want people not to like me. We all as humans, we want people to like us. We want to be likable.
Sure.
We want to get, accolades and positive comments. We don't actually like anybody to say, oh, that's garbage, what you're doing. We don't want that. So I was very scared. And out of the 6 months of therapy and a lot of money that it cost me, what I got out of it was that the artwork is like your nail, your fingernail, or a little part of you. Not everybody's going to love you. Not everybody's going to hate you. So I'm going to tell you a little story that happened in the first gallery in my first exhibit. And I was showing there. I was nervous. I was sweating. I had 5 or 6 pieces. And it was in a gallery here in Miami. And it was for an emerging artist. And a gentleman came in and he said to me, he looked at my work and he said to me that he was a critic from a university, an art critic from a university. And he said that my artwork was a waste of paint. It was a waste of canvas. He said that I should definitely look into another form of business, of life, that I was never going to make it as an artist. And he
Wow.
didn't use quite those words. He actually used more derogatory words, which
Painful.
I'm not going to repeat.
Wow.
And at first, my Latin reaction was to, say horrible things back at him. But I listened and I went inside myself and I started thinking about other artists that might have received critics like that. And I thought of Picasso, Degas, Rothko, Gauguin,
Right.
and the list is so long of artists in art masters that had similar criticisms. Degas was laughed at his exhibitions. Picasso, he was trading his works for coffee and for wine and with Gertrude Stein. I mean, the history is so long of criticisms. And so I replied to him and I thanked him. I said, thank you so much for that negative criticism, because if I have someone to look to are all of those masters like Picasso and like Rothko and like all these that were criticized also, so I'm in the right boat. So thank you so much. I thanked him for that. And it didn't end there, because 6 months later, it was about 6 months or 8 months later, I owned my first gallery. And I had my exhibit, and the same gentleman came in, and he didn't know it was me because it had been a long time, and I'll never forget his face. And he came in and he was with somebody else, and he was talking in Spanish, and he was saying that the composition of these works were brilliant, and that, the color scheme, that he was going on and on with the, gallery, the art critic mumbo jumbo that they said. And I tapped him on the back of his shoulder and I said, my work has really changed a lot in 6 months, because 6 months it wasn't worth the canvas it was sitting on. And now I'm like this, the composition is perfect and the colors are perfect. And of course he didn't know it was me. And then he realized what it was. And it just showed me that, you have to have a thick skin. You have to, wear it like a loose garment.
Right.
There are people that are going to be mean, and there are people that are going to love your works, and there are going to be hypocritical people. There are going to be people that are going to analyze your work. It's just part of dealing with the public, and it's part of the business. And you have to really just be yourself and do what you feel what it is, and express your opinion, your point of view in your work. And that's all that matters. Somebody once told me in the beginning of my career, they said, when you die and you meet your maker, whoever or whatever that may be, and they ask you what you did with your divine talent, what will you be able to say? Will you be able to say, I shared it with the world? Because that is one of the most important things that an artist that's given this divine talent or this creative ability is not so much for sales, and it's not so much it's more about sharing it with the world.
Right.
And if you're able to share it with the world, the sales will come, everything else, the accolades will come, the fortune and everything else will come. When I have an artist that comes into me and they say, well, I need to sell this because, that's a bad attitude. The attitude should be, I'm going to exhibit, I'm going to show my work, I'm going to let 1 million people see it, I'm going to let as many people see it as possible, because not everybody's going to love it and not everybody's going to hate it. And there's going to be one person that's going to love it so much, that's going to have an emotional attachment to it, that's going to buy it. And that's the cherry on the cake.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think the worst thing an artist could do is not show their work.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote. I don't remember who said it or exactly how it went, but something like life's too short to live somebody else's life. And so I think you have to be authentic and be willing to be authentic as an artist. And you're right. That means that sometimes you're going to, and it's a very emotional, difficult thing, but I'm guessing that, as somebody who's in the art community, that you provide some of that support for the artists that you work with and others have for you to kind of lift you up and help you through those times. So I think having a safety net can be important. And right now we're a few months into this COVID-19 pandemic, which has been really a very challenging time for all of us. And I think it's been kind of inspiring to see. There's certainly been a lot of loss and a lot of pain, but it's kind of inspiring to see the way people have come together. How has this affected your business and your artists, this whole pandemic? It
has been a huge challenge. I'm going to tell you that Wynwood area is like a lot of the areas, St. Petersburg, we had to close immediately because we can't deal with the public. We're not a food industry that people can pick up on the curb.
Right.
So we sell luxury items that people are not really looking at right now. So we are really suffering in the sense that I think that one of the last things that people are thinking about is buying art right now in this moment. However, I think it's changing a little bit, but I think that in any situation, in any bad situation, there's always a way of spinning it to some people can make money on it. Like right now, obviously, delivery services, Amazon, and all different types of services are doing very, very well. They're flourishing. I have a gentleman that I work with that does acrylic. He does acrylic furniture and stuff, and he's shown me how to work with laser cutters, and I collaborate with him a lot. And he's doing amazing because he's doing these plastic masks for the hospitals,
right,
and the shields, and he's doing all this other stuff that he normally doesn't do, but is part of, what he can do. And I think that is, not everybody makes money or not everybody has challenges when there is a challenging situation. It just goes around. When we had back in 2008, 2007, when the market was really, really bad, I made a fortune because everybody that was foreclosing their apartments and their buildings were being purchased by foreigners 10 cents on the dollar, and the foreigners only want to decorate their apartments with original artwork that's reasonable because they may only be here 3 months out of the year. So I was selling to all of those things. Those years were really great to me because I honed in on, well, everybody's having a problem, not everybody's buying, but who is buying? Well, it's the foreigners. They're purchasing. So I made deals with a lot of developers and a lot of people that were in foreclosure, and we did very well throughout that. This is a little bit different because this is something that's worldwide. So it's affected our tour exhibitions, travel, which is a big thing for us because we have a lot of clients from abroad, overseas. The good thing is the artists are able to create new things in their studios. A lot of artists really create from their soul and from bad things that happen to them, from pain and from suffering. I'm not an artist that creates from pain and suffering. My life is great. I'm very colorful. You see my art, it's a big rainbow of color because I'm blessed. I have, I'm always happy and I always find the glass is full. But a lot of artists really build from that suffering. And certainly there's a lot of suffering going on in the world right now. And so I've seen a lot of artists creating amazing things. And one, for instance, is one that you, I think, had mentioned or had read about, Joshua Wingirter. And Joshua Wingirter is from New Orleans. and he's brilliant. He does pop graffiti type art. And what he did was he was walking around in New Orleans, and there were plywood, big patches of plywood on all of the restaurants and bars. And he went around and he started doing his graffiti paintings on these big plywood billboards like that were plastering on. And as you walk through the streets in New Orleans, it's basically a gallery of his works.
Wow.
And so a newspaper picked it up and he created a drive-through gallery. So not only did he create a drive-through gallery, which hasn't been done, once this is all over and those restaurants open, he may sell those pieces to the restaurant or to the bar, or he may do a huge exhibition of these coronavirus-inspired pieces of art. I mean, it's brilliant. It was a brilliant idea. He took a bad situation, he turned it around, and when I was watching, he was sending on Instagram what he was doing, and I thought, I told him, I said, you're brilliant. This is exactly a typical artist that is really entrepreneurial and creative. He's extremely creative. I've sold a lot of his works. Joshua Wingirter, he's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's a great story because, not everything is gloom and doom. I mean, we're surviving the world. I was thinking the other day about the masters in the Renaissance time, Mona Lisa, or any of the Renaissance paintings, how they've survived pandemics, epidemics, wars, all kinds of turbulence in the world, and art always survives. So if there's any solace to all of this, and you're an artist, you know that your art will survive all of this.
Yeah.
We may not survive. We may move on. We may die and go to another place, but art is always going to be around, and it's your legacy. It's what you leave behind. So it's actually very rewarding to think that.
I love that. And you're exactly right. And, interestingly, I'm an artist in a different way, but writing is one of my passions. And I have found through this time the opportunity to write and to creatively express myself. So I think there's probably some people that may have found that art brought them some comfort during this, even if they're not able to produce something that anybody else would ever want to purchase, or, if it has meaning, art can be a comfort also, I think, the expression of art. And
absolutely.
I'm a believer in it.
I'm hoping that this, that people don't become so totally scared and so totally oppressed by this that we're able to move on from this.
Right.
My true concern with the way that this has all been handled is that, we human beings, I think, are made to be interactive with other human beings. We need to touch, we need to hug, we need to be around other people. Human beings aren't made to be isolated and in a bubble. We definitely need interaction. And I think that the more time we spend away from everybody else, the more scared we become, and the more difficult it is for the world to, become a normal place again.
Right.
It is very scary. And I know that there's definitely, a virus out there and all of that, but we can't live in fear. If we live in fear, then that's not life.
Right.
So I think that it's important to get perspective on this. And I truly believe, like I said, I always feel the glass is half full. And I know that this too shall pass, and that it's going to be, when people, start coming out again and the business start flowing, I think that everybody's going to be ready to really, get more art and feed and dine in beautiful restaurants and really be, a part of human society again.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And I think we have to stay optimistic, and we can't let fear rule our lives, because it chokes out love, which is way more important. I could talk about this all day, but I'd like to ask you, we've got a lot of our listeners who are young students, many of them artists. And for those that are out there and they're trying to figure out how to break into commercializing their artwork, do you have a few words of advice for them? I mean, where did they start with that?
Okay. I've taught in a couple of universities and colleges about art appreciation, and also on how artists should approach galleries. I have quite a bit of experience with that on both ends. So the first thing I think is important that an artist has a body of work that they're willing to put out there. That's number one. Once the artist has a body of work, I don't necessarily agree with having a whole style, but they have to have something that's cohesive, just like a line of designer wear or a couture wear. There has to be some cohesion of some sort, even if the subject matters are different or the styles are different. Maybe 2 or 3 or 4 pieces of each line, so that when a gallerist looks at it, says, okay, he's got 3 different directions. I may want to pick one, or I may show the 3 or 2 of them. It gives me, as a gallerist, when I look at an artist like that, I can see that the artist, there may be works that will not work in my market, but there are other works that do. So an artist first has to have a body of work, minimum 12, 15 pieces that they're willing to show and that they're willing to put forth. They should search out galleries. Look for galleries that have the same styles of works or the same kind of feel. I always say, when I go to a gallery, would I want my children, because I look at my art, like if they're my children, would I want my children in this home? And if you think that it fits in there, then it probably does. But you have to look at what's around. I have artists that come into my gallery and they don't even look at the artwork that's on the walls, and they come to me and they say, can I show here? Or, and that's not the way to approach a gallery. First, you need to see if it's good for you as an artist. Look around the gallery, see what the gallery is. Do your homework. Has the gallery just opened, or has the gallery been around for a while? My experience has not been good in the beginning when I've shown in galleries that have been new, and then they close in the middle of the night and take my works and never hear from them again. So you have to be careful on where you're showing and who you're showing with. So it's important to have a body of work. It's important to do your homework. Does your artwork fit in the gallery? Then how long has the gallery been in operation? Okay, once you have those 3 things, then make an appointment. Do not walk in with your portfolio to a gallery, because even though as artists we think that we're the center of the world and nobody else is doing anything and everybody has to adhere to ourselves, and I include myself in that because I have to watch that, you have to respect the fact that a gallery is a running business. The gallery, even though the gallery is showing and representing artists, that they have their own schedules. So call the gallery or email the gallery, find out what their submission process is. There are different submission processes. Some they want them online. We do submission process online. Some will make an appointment. They want to see your portfolio. Some they ask you for your website. There are all different types of galleries and all different types of way to submit your art. Find out. Don't walk into a gallery, because you're 99%, you're putting yourself in a situation where a gallerist is going to say, we don't take walk-ins. You're just setting yourself up for a rejection.
Yeah.
As a gallerist and as an artist, I sometimes, if my schedule is not really, really busy, I may take in a walk-in that'll come in and I'll talk to them a bit, because I remember what it's like. And I know that there's no school that you can go to learn this. People don't teach, they don't teach this in school. You got to learn by getting hit on the head, a couple of times. But the reality is that the best thing is, find out what the gallery's submission process is. Do they want a portfolio be sent into the gallery? Used to be with slides. People don't use slides anymore. Everything's online and with kind of, online submissions, or there are different types of galleries. So find out. Also, have an idea of, if you're an emerging to mid-career artist, no matter how good your work is, it's impossible to think you're going to get $100,000 for the painting that you just made, because a lot of the pricing is very important, and pricing isn't always equal to the amount of work or the amount of talent you have. Mm-hmm. It has a lot to do with your background. Unfortunately, this is our business. So you have to start from the bottom and you have to work your way up the ladder. It's a process. It's a slow process. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to be consistent. You have to be persistent. And you have to have the passion for it. The business of art is a little bit different. I say to people, in most businesses, everything is black and white and in the box. And in the art business, it's very abstract and there are so many different shades of color. And there's so many different ways of having this business. So in one way, it's really great because there's an opportunity for so many different colors. However, there are certain criterias and certain things that one has to follow, the respect that one has to follow for the gallerist and for the representatives. So that's kind of one of the things, a couple of things that I help with the artists.
That's really great advice. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's, like you said, a lot of times those things aren't taught in education and you have to learn them the hard way. So thank you for sharing that. I could continue this conversation forever, but I know you've got things to do and a lot of work to hopefully get your galleries back open when you can soon. But I would like to ask you, William, before we close, if there was one piece of advice that you would leave with our listeners, future and early stage entrepreneurs and artists, what would that be?
Don't let go of your passion. Don't let anybody put you down. Don't let anybody tell you can't do it. If you feel it in your heart, follow your dream, and it will come true. You just have to be persistent, and it will happen. Art is a beautiful thing. It's a divine inspiration, and you shouldn't let it go. I mean, I certainly would have lost a lot had I not pursued what I always wanted to do from a little boy. It took me some time. I'm 60 years old now, so it took me some time to get here. But for the past 20 years, I've been living my dream. I am very, very happy with what I'm doing. It's not always on the top. It's like a roller coaster. Like in any business, you have your ups and you have your downs, but that's part of business and that's part of life, and you should definitely follow your dreams, be passionate about it, and don't let go. Just go for it.
I love that. Thank you. That's wonderful. Wonderful advice. William, where can our listeners find out more about your galleries and about you and your art?
Well, obviously we're online. We have a website and it's artfusiongalleries.com. And if you'd like to contact me directly, it's William Braemer at artfusiongalleries.com. I look at my emails. I'm hooked up all the time. So it doesn't matter what time of day or night it is. I always get my emails. And that's a great way of contacting me. I welcome emails or questions to anybody that I can help or lend a hand to. I certainly will. I also have my own website with my work, and it's williambraemer.com. My websites are in the process of changing a little bit, and now is a time that we're doing a lot of different things. So we're opening up portfolios for artists online because it's not available. Not everybody's available to be in the gallery. So we're doing a lot of different things. We're changing a little bit we're in a changing process. We're in a growing process.
Sure.
But you can definitely get in touch with me with William Braemer at artfusiongalleries.com.
Thank you, William.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure talking to you.
It was fun.